Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. Today, this video is going to be just kind of briefly going over the various versions of the Arduino IDE environment where we can edit all the code to put onto the board. In the order of videos this is coming out, I'm not stopping any of my previous series. I'm just getting ready for the next upcoming one when we're going to look at some physical computing elements as we go. So this is just to kind of get ready for that, be ready to do all the code, get that going from there. So what this environment here is where we can edit all of the code to go onto our Arduino boards, which I've got one right over here. This will be very helpful and very necessary for you to do any kind of physical computing, really anything. So before we get into the details of it, again, if you enjoy the content, you learn something, definitely like, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. You know how it goes. So let's hop into it. This right here is the version 1, I should say, version 1.8, I believe, of the Arduino code editor. I have it right on my screen right there. I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's hiding out the internet. And this is where we can edit the code. When you have it all downloaded and you just open it up, it's going to open up whatever you've most recently been working on. So here's an older version of some code for another project I'm working with. This is nice and straightforward. I enjoy it. It's pretty simple. You just pretty much type out your code how you need it to go. You connect your board to the computer, and you can just send the code from the computer to the board. And then whenever you power up the circuit board, it will automatically run the code that's on there. We'll talk more about the boards in a future video. So don't worry about that if you're still trying to work out all your boards and components and all that. We're just going to be focusing on the software for today. So we'll come back to that. The software here, it's set up very similarly to what we've been doing if you've been following along with these videos in the P5 web editor, where there's a setup and a looping function, and we're setting all the things up either globally or locally. It may look just a little bit different, though, if you're just kind of looking through in a bit more detail. For the majority of the videos here in the class that I teach, we work with JavaScript. The Arduino code here is kind of built out of some less abstracted languages. It's more out of, I believe it's just C or C+. I'd have to look to really verify that. But basically, it's just a slightly different language, but a lot of the formatting is the same. I'm not going to break down all of the specific differences here or in a video. It's just going to be as we go through all of the code in the future video lessons, I'll bring up the specific things as they happen. Just know that, generally we'll have voids, very specific with the semicolons, and there may be other symbols and things that you just may not be as familiar with, but it'll be relatively straightforward. The general formatting of, let me see where we find one, with the parentheses and the braces and all of that, that's still the same. And that, at least for me, made it very easy to learn this code after I already had some JavaScript knowledge. So we have that here. One thing to note, again, you can connect all of your boards through to the computer with the USB, but you just need to make sure that under tools you have the right board that you have plugged in, and that it's plugged into the right port. That's very important, because otherwise when you try to upload your code, you're going to get errors. So this software is very fun. It can work with a lot of different boards, not just the Arduino ones. So I'm using a specific one from the ESP32 board, so I can just swap to that, and then I can just write the code like I would for an Arduino board, and it'll still upload and do all the stuff. So that makes it very useful for multiple applications. But again, there's a ton of boards, and you can add, I have all of them installed just because I can, but you can find the ones you have there, just select it, and it'll go under port. These are all the ports that you have stuff plugged into on your computer that are available to communicate with. So when you plug it in, I don't have a cable with me right this second because I'm just talking about software. But when you plug it in, it'll say, okay, port, COM, in this case 5 would be the next one. And it will say, in my case, Arduino Uno in parentheses. So I would know, okay, that's the one I need. Between Mac computers and PC computers, the serial port labeling is different. So again, having that little, it'll say what board is connected most of the time, at least if it's an Arduino board and not a third-party other brand one. It can be very helpful just to navigate that and find it. Otherwise, you may have to do a little bit of trial and error, but once you have the correct board and port selected, you can just type out your code, and it'll upload it all and check it, and it'll go right to the board. It's very nice. All right, let's put this away for just a second, and I'm gonna draw your attention to this website here, arduino.cc. This is where all of this lives. So again, if you wanted to buy your hardware directly from them, you could do that. You could find it all, from other websites or stores. All of their things are open source. So if you're buying it directly from Arduino, the money is going to help support them and future development, which is really cool. But that also means that you can find it usually cheaper elsewhere. I have an actual name brand one here because I wanted to support them, but you can find them all over the place. Amazon's a good place to look, and all that. You can usually find them in kits that have a bunch of other components, so you can start building. So that's that. So that's all there. We're going to skip over the hardware and go right to the software. So what I've shown you here is a downloadable version of the program that you can run without the internet connection, but there's actually a few different versions of this. So right now what I showed you was an older one, version 1.8.19. If you happen to have an older computer or maybe a less powerful computer, it's very useful. It's very lightweight. It can do things. You can see all the things it runs for. That's totally fine. I've used it before, but it is an older version, and they're focusing more on version 2 right now. And you can see there's, again, other things for different versions, but version 2 is the main one that they are focusing on. It's a little bit more powerful. It's for more modern computers. So if you have, a newer computer, you're probably going to want to go with version 2.0. Funnily enough, you can also see, essentially beta versions, and you can try it out. It's not really useful for what I do, so I don't really focus on that. But I actually don't have version 2.0 installed on this device, so I just figured we'd install it and look for it. So you need to find what operating system you have. It's really not much of an issue because for Windows, it's pretty much just Windows 10 or newer. Linux, make sure you've got the right version here, and then if you have a Mac OS, again, make sure you have which version you have. That's the big one to make sure. So I have Windows 10 on here. You can choose to, again, donate to them to help support new things. It's totally optional. I'm just going to download it right now. It'll do that. All right. If I double click it, will it just go? Yeah, there we go. So it'll pop up. We can start, if you go through all the things, we agree to it. I'm going to install it for everyone. It doesn't really matter. So we'll hit yes. We'll do yes. Agree to all the bits. Tell it where to install. It does a thing. This isn't usually going to take very long. While it's installing, I will say the reason I have been using version 1 before was because I started the project that is on the screen here. This is, again, old version of the code that's loaded. Back when version 2 was still in beta. So all the libraries and all the things I have are just already ready to go in version 1. So that's what I'm going to use to finish up this project. But I'm wanting to swap to version 2 in the future just because it's more up to date. They're continuing to focus on it, and I'll get everything working with that later. You can tell the difference between the two if you look. Version 1 has a circular icon, where version 2 is kind of a square with rounded edges. So that's going. I will say, if you do a lot of coding in Arduino stuff, this may or may not be the actual video you need to be watching, but you can actually create versions of this inside of programs like VS Code. There's a bunch of plugins and expansions that you can use to, just basically do all of the things Arduino does in its program, just in VS Code automatically. So if you really prefer that environment, give that a check. I'm not going to be focusing on that here. I'm going to be staying in the program with Arduino for the purposes of these videos. I just wanted to pull that up because this is taking a little bit longer to install than I thought it would. Version 1 doesn't take any time at all, really. While that's going, I'll also point out that here on the webpage there's an option to sign in. And this could actually be pretty useful. I'll talk about that while it's uploading, but before we actually sign in, I'm going to draw your attention right to the left of that. There's this option of a bunch of different things, and there's one called the web editor. And if we open that up, it'll open up an option to sign in, and I'm going to sign in with my account real quick. You can just make one, but if for whatever reason you can't have I'm going to skip that for now. The programs installed on your device, or maybe for whatever reason it's just not working. We're just going to assume for whatever reason you hate the downloaded programs, or you can't have it on there. Doesn't matter. There is a web editor where you can edit your code and put it all on the boards just right from the web browser. It's super cool, super useful. There is one thing, though. You'll need to make sure that you have the agent, the Arduino control agent. And this is what lets your web browser communicate with the Arduino board through the serial ports. If you don't have that, it's not going to work. And it'll pop up right here. If you hit Learn More, it'll do all the things. It'll say, so do I have it on here? I don't, because I don't really use the web editor that much. So we'll install that, or I'll install that personally, but it's just a little thing that runs out, and lets it all communicate. It's normally fine, but if you're going to do things where you're having your Arduino communicate over serial with another program, you'll have to quit that and load up the other stuff. So it can be a little annoying, which is why I don't particularly use it much. I use the downloaded programs. I may talk more about the web editor and some of that in the future. We'll see how it goes. That's beeping now. Okay, so Arduino. Okay, now that's done. So I'm just going to finish that, and we'll run it real quick just to look at it. But I just wanted to point out that there is a web editor version, and it works just fine. You can save all the stuff to the cloud. Again, I don't use it very much, but it's a useful tool to have. I like to have everything backed up on my computers. But now, while this is loading, here is the newest version of the web editor. Yes, do the things. And again, it's pretty much the same. We're just going to install all the bits for the first time. But you can just see it looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more up-to-date. Just in terms of aesthetics, but it's got all the things here. It does all the stuff. You can, say, find your board and port just right there. Very useful. It's doing all of the installing things for reasons. But again, it's got a nice default code here. So again, we can set it up, we can loop it, and we can send it right to the board. We'll get more into this in the future, but okay, all the things are still installing. This is taking forever. I shouldn't have said do that now. But you can see there's a little console here. It's very useful. I'm going to probably use some of this for the purposes of these videos, just so you can see it. But anyways, this is where I'm going to wrap it up because this is just wreaking havoc on me trying to record this. Fine. And we're going to go from there. So again, you can find all of the editor downloading stuff on the webpage, the arduino.cc. God, freaking heck. This is really annoying. Are you done? Are you done now, Arduino? Cool. As you can see, it's probably going to ask to update a bunch of stuff the very first time. So don't try to record videos while it's doing that, because that'll be annoying. But you can just go to arduino.cc. If you, again, if you go to up here to the web editor, you can use that. Totally useful. There's a few other things to download and install driver-wise if you're going to have that working. So I'm going to have that ready to go in the background. So we'll have all that ready to go on my end for future videos. But you can also learn more about the hardware and things of that nature. You can either get it directly from from Arduino or from other stores. Doesn't really matter. Here's the board I'll be using for this one right here. Again, you can download it all, install it, make sure all of your boards and ports are all matching and working, send your code there. We'll talk more about the code in the future. I just wanted to point this out where you can get it, because if you don't have the code editor, you can't do any of the Arduino stuff for the courses that I teach. So for all of my students out there, make sure that you have this on your computer and we'll be ready to go for the future videos. This is where I'm going to end it now, and I will see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.